Welcome everybody to day 25 of this book reading session of A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Chapter 8, The Discovery of Inner Space. According to an ancient Sufi story, there lived a king in some Middle Eastern island who was continuously torn between happiness and despondency. The slightest thing would cause him great upset or provoke an intense reaction, and his happiness would quickly turn into disappointment and despair. A time came when the king finally got tired of himself and of life, and he began to seek a way out. He sent for a wise man who lived in his kingdom and who was reputed to be enlightened. When the wise man came, the king said to him, I want to be like you. Can you give me something that will bring balance, serenity, and wisdom into my life? I will pay any price you ask. The wise man said, I may be able to help you, but the price is so great that your entire kingdom would not be sufficient payment for it. Therefore, it will be a gift to you if you will honor it. The king gave his assurances, and the wise man left. A few weeks later, he returned and handed the king an ornate box carved in jade. The king opened the box and found a simple gold ring inside. Some letters were inscribed on the ring. The inscription read, This too will pass. What is the meaning of this? Asked the king. The wise man said, Wear this ring always. Whatever happens, before you call it good or bad, touch this ring and read the inscription. That way, you will always be at peace. This too will pass. What is it about these simple words that makes them so powerful? Looking at it superficially, it would seem while those words may provide some comfort in a bad situation, they would also diminish the enjoyment of the good things in life. Don't be too happy because it won't last. This seems to be what they are saying when applied in a situation that is perceived as good. The full import of these two words becomes clear when we consider them in the context of two other stories that we encountered earlier. The story of the Zen master, whose only response was always, Is that so? Shows the good that comes through inner non resistance to events, that is to say, being one with what happens. The story of a man whose comment was invariably a laconic maybe illustrates the wisdom of non judgment. And the story of the ring points to the fact of impermanence, which recognize leads to non attachment. Non resistance, non judgment, and non attachment are the three aspects of true wisdom and enlightened living. So, what we're talking here is a life of non resistance, non judgment, and non attachment. And it comes in the words, Is that so? Maybe. And this too will pass. So if you make these three words a combination in your day to day life, in whatever situation, event, circumstance, relationship, wherever, whichever aspect of life, always have these three friends with you and ask yourself, is that so? To practice non resistance. And always comment, maybe, in order to be more non judgmental. And whatever situation you're going through, even if it's a happy ride or if it's a sad ride. Is it something on the positive side or if it's something on the negative side? Just remember and tell yourself, this too will pass, so that you are able to live a life of non-attachment as well. Those words inscribed on the ring are not telling you that you should not enjoy the good in your life, nor are they merely meant to provide some comfort in times of suffering. They have a deeper purpose, to make you aware of the fleetingness of every situation, which is due to the transience of all forms, good or bad. When you become aware of the transience of all forms, your attachment to them lessens and you disidentify from them to some extent. Being detached does not mean that you cannot enjoy the good that the world has to offer. In fact, you enjoy it more once you see and accept the transience of all things and the inevitability of change. You can enjoy the pleasures of the world while they last without fear of loss or anxiety about the future. When you are detached, you gain a higher vantage point from which to view the events in your life instead of being trapped inside them. You become like an astronaut who sees the planet Earth surrounded by the vastness of space and realizes a paradoxical truth. The Earth is precious and at the same time insignificant. The recognition that this too will pass brings detachment, and with the detachment, another dimension comes into your life, inner space. Through detachment, as well as non judgment and inner non resistance, you gain access to that dimension. When you are no longer totally identified with forms, consciousness, who you are, becomes freed from its imprisonment in form. This freedom is the arising of inner space. It comes as a stillness, a subtle peace deep within you, even in the face of something seemingly bad. This too will pass. Suddenly, there is space around the event. There is also space around the emotional highs and lows, even around pain. And above all, there is space between your thoughts. And from that space emanates a peace that is not of this world. Because this world is form and the peace is space. This is the peace of God. Now you can enjoy and honor the things of this world without giving them an importance and significance they don't have. You can participate in the dance of creation and be active without attachment to outcome and without placing unreasonable demands upon this world. Fulfill me, make me happy, make me feel safe. Tell me who I am. The world cannot give you those things, and when you no longer have such expectations, all self created suffering comes to an end. All such suffering is due to an overvaluation of form and an unawareness of the dimension of inner space. When that dimension is present in your life, you can enjoy things, experiences, and the pleasures of the sense without losing yourself in them, without inner attachment to them, that is to say, without being becoming addicted to the world. The words, this too will pass, are pointers towards reality, in pointing to the impermanence of all forms. By implication, they are also pointing to the eternal. Only the eternal in you can recognize the impermanent as impermanent. When the dimensions of space is lost, or rather not knowing, the things of the world assume an absolute importance, a seriousness and heaviness that in truth they do not have. When the world is not viewed from the perspective of the formless, it becomes a threatening place and ultimately a place of despair. The Old Testament prophet must have felt this when he wrote, all things are full of weariness, a man cannot utter it. So, dwelling upon it more, when we talk about this too will pass. See, in life, everything that happens is never permanent. Be it the joy, be it the good that is happening, that too will pass. And be it the suffering, be it the pain, be it the grief, again, that shall also pass. Because what we follow on this school of Earth or on planet Earth is a school of time and space. And these are the two distinguishing factors which separates from the physical earth to the metaphysical. Because physical earth पे हर चीज time और space से है. In that sense, everything on planet Earth has a time, has a validity, and everything on planet Earth consumes a space. चाहे वो आपकी thoughts हो, चाहे वो आपकी possessions हो, चाहे your own physical body, it consumes a space. And in that free space which we see are energy particles which are actually cannot be seen by the visual eye but are there as forms to transfer the energy. So जब हम इस चीज पे आते हैं कि that this too will pass, it means that from the viewpoint of planet Earth, हर एक चीज का एक टाइम है and things change after time. And हर एक चीज की एक space है and that energy also changes with time. And when we are in this body, physical body which we have, and we try to focus on these four words, which reads, this too will pass, we are able to actually get close to that inner self of ours, wherein abhi, due to these factors and probably due to a lot of our issues where we start thinking on the other terms, that there is a inner resistance towards what is there actually inside of. So जब हम उस inner resistance को with the words is that so and a non-judgmental life with the word maybe follow करते हैं and then get to this basic realization that everything on planet Earth has a time, has a validity, and this too will pass. That makes us lead a life where we are not attached to what is outside. Because what is outside is not permanent. It will change. It keeps changing. It has a life. It has a validity. It has an expiry date. But what is inside of you, when you break those barriers of resistance, where you start thinking on the terms of Is that so? Or maybe then you break those barriers of your inner resistance to get connected to who you are deep inside. So ये जो 3 words हैं, is that so? Maybe, and this too will pass. If you can make these 3 words, this trilogy, as your mool mantra in life, in any situation, event, or circumstance, or relationship, chances are that you will not be in a state of conflict, and strong chances you will be in a state of inner peace, inner non-resistance, non-judgmental, totally in that bliss of what we call as joyful life. Because अगर किसी सिचुएशन में हमने उसको इस चीज में जज नहीं किया गुड और बैड और उसको मे बी में रखा, तो वैसे ही उस सिचुएशन का इम्पैक्ट नहीं आया. Because good or bad is a label, perception of the mind. But if I'm that maybe space, then there is no judgment. There is no attachment. And when I'm looking at any situation, event, circumstances, relationship, from the perspective of, is that so? That anything and everything is possible, then there is no attachment again in that situation, circumstance, event, or relationship. And finally, whatever is happening, I just, in any situation, circumstance, event, or relationship, if I can see it from the perspective of this too will pass, that is where you get to non-attachment, where you are aware and clear that everything has a validity, and whatever it is in this moment, this too will pass. Object consciousness and space consciousness. Most people's lives are cluttered up with things, material things, things to do, things to think about. Their lives are like the history of humanity, which Winston Churchill defined as one damn thing after another. Their minds are filled up with the clutter of thoughts, one thought after another. This is the dimension of object consciousness that is many people's predominant reality. And that is why their lives are so out of balance. Object consciousness needs to be balanced by space consciousness for sanity to return to our planet and for humanity to fulfill its destiny. The arising of space consciousness is the next stage in the evolution of humanity. Space consciousness means that in addition to being conscious of things which always come down to sense perceptions, thoughts, and emotions, there is an undercurrent of awareness. Awareness implies that you are not only conscious of things, objects, but you are also conscious of being conscious. If you can sense an alert inner stillness in the background while things happen in the foreground, that's it. This dimension is there in everyone, but most people are completely unaware of it. Sometimes I point to it by saying, can you feel your own presence? Space consciousness represents not only freedom from ego, but also from dependency on the things of this world, from materialism and materiality. In the spiritual dimension, which alone can give transcendent and true meaning to this world. Whenever you are upset about an event, a person, or a situation, the real cause is not the event, person, or situation, but a loss of true perspective that only space can provide. You are trapped in object consciousness, unaware of the timeless inner space of consciousness itself. The words, this too will pass, when used as a pointer, can restore awareness of that dimension to you. Another pointer to the truth in you is contained in the following statement: I am never upset for the reason I think. So we need to make a conscious effort of moving from object consciousness to space consciousness, where we are not too attached or too occupied with all the materialistic possessions and all the materialistic activities of the external world, but we are in the state where we are aware of consciousness in itself. That means you are a witness who is seeing yourself from a higher perspective. It's like, in terms of narration, it's like there is something outside which is looking at you, whatever you're doing at that time, and you and the other person are aware of the presence of what is happening. That is what it means to be when we are moving from a perspective of the object reality to space consciousness. Falling below and rising above thought. When you are very tired, you may become very more peaceful, more relaxed than in your usual state. This is because thinking is subsiding, and so you can't remember your mind-made problematic self anymore. You are moving towards sleep. When you drink alcohol or take certain drinks, provided they don't trigger your pain body, you may also feel more relaxed, more carefree, and perhaps more alive in for a while. You may start singing and dancing, which since ancient times are the expressions of the joy of life. Because you are less burdened by your mind, you can glimpse the joy of being. Perhaps this is the reason alcohol is called spirit, but there is a high price to pay: unconsciousness. Instead of rising above thought, you have fallen below it. A few more drinks, and you will have regressed to the vegetable realm. Space consciousness has little to do with being spaced out. Both states are beyond thought. This they have in common. The fundamental difference, however, is that in the former, you rise above thought, in the later, you fall below it. One is the next step in the evolution of human consciousness, the other, a regression to a stage we left behind eons. So, when we are talking about either falling below or rising above, that choice is always with us. Because when we say that we are falling below, you are getting that relaxation, but then slowly, you're going back. But when we are, we fully consume our body in terms of the physical tiredness by activities like work, workout, your general day-to-day life, and when you are actually, your physical body is tired to the extent that when you lie down on the bed and you just sleep, that is where you do not think about your problems, and that is a state where you are actually rising above your thoughts. So whatever is it that is going on in your mind, you are going beyond it in the natural way. But your non-natural ways are alcohol, drugs, or any kind of a addiction, that also takes you there, but then uske khud ke ek, they have some notions attached to the usage of alcohol, drugs, or whatever it is. So always concentrate on rising above that thought by physically consuming yourself and being in that state of tiredness at the end of the day, so that उस स्टेट में फिर आप सोचते नहीं हो कल क्या होगा, परसों क्या होगा. You are just in the present, in the now, and you just want to sleep. Problems फिर भी है, but आपका ध्यान नहीं जाता because the body is now physically tired. So that state is also possible, which takes you there. Television. Watching television is the favorite leisure activity, or rather non-activity, for millions of people around the world. The average American, by the time he is 60 years old, will have spent 15 years staring at the TV screen. In many other countries, the figures are similar. Many people find watching TV relaxing. Observe yourself closely, and you will find that the longer the screen remains the focus of your attention, the more your thought activity becomes suspended. And for long periods, you're watching the talk show, game show, sitcom, or even commercials with almost no thought being generated by your mind. Not only do you remember your problems anymore, but you temporarily free of yourself. You become temporarily free of yourself. And what could be more relaxing than that? So does TV watching create inner space? Does it cause you to be present? Unfortunately, it does not. Although for long periods, your mind may not be generating any thoughts. It has linked into the thought activity of the television show. It has linked up with the TV version of the collective mind and is thinking its thoughts. Your mind is inactive only in the sense that it is not producing thoughts. It is, however, continuously absorbing thoughts and images that come through the TV screen. This induces a trance-like passive state of heightened susceptibility, not unlike hypnosis. That is why it lends itself to manipulation of public opinion, as politicians and special interest groups, as well as advertisers, know and will pay millions of dollars to catch you in that state of receptive awareness. They want their thoughts to become your thoughts, and usually they succeed. So, when watching television, the tendency is for you to fall below thought, not rise above it. Television has this in common with alcohol and certain other drugs. While it provides some relief to your mind, you again pay a high price, loss of consciousness. Like those drugs, it too has a strong addictive quality. You reach for the remote control to switch off and instead find yourself going through all the channels. Half an hour or an hour later, you are still watching, still going through the channels. The off button is only one your finger seems unable to press. You are still watching, usually not because of anything of interest has caught your attention, but precisely because there is nothing of interest to watch. Once you are hooked, the more trivial, the more meaningless it is, the more addictive it becomes. If it were interesting, thought-provoking, it would stimulate your mind into thinking for itself again, which is more conscious and therefore preferable to a TV-induced trance. Your attention would therefore no longer be totally held captive of the images on the screen. The content of the program, if there is a certain quality to it, can to some extent counteract and sometimes even undo the hypnotic, mind-numbing effect of the medium of TV. There are some programs that have been extremely helpful to many people, have changed their lives for the better, opened their heart, made them more conscious. Even some comedy shows, although they may be about nothing in particular, can be unintentionally spiritual by showing a caricature version of the human folly and the ego. They teach us not to take anything too seriously, to approach life in a light-hearted way, and above all, they teach us by making us laugh. Laughter is extraordinarily liberating as well as healing. Most of television, however, is as yet controlled by people who are totally controlled by the ego. And so the TV's hidden agenda becomes control of you by putting you to sleep. That is to say, making you unconscious. Yet there is enormous and still largely unexplored potential in the medium of television. Avoid watching programs and commercials that assault you with a rapid succession of images that changes every 2 to 3 seconds or less. Excessive TV watching and those programs in particular are largely responsible for attention deficit disorder, a mental dysfunction now affecting millions of children worldwide. A short attention span makes all your perceptions and relationships shallow and unsatisfying. Whatever you do, whatever action you perform in that state lacks quality because quality requires attention. Frequent and prolonged TV watching not only makes you unconscious, it also induces passivity and drains you of energy. Therefore, rather than watching at random, choose the program you want to see. Whenever you remember to do so, feel the aliveness inside your body as you watch. Alternatively, be aware of your breathing from time to time. Look away from the screen at regular intervals so that it does not completely take possession of your visual sense. Don't turn up the volume any higher than necessary so that the TV doesn't overwhelm you on the auditory level. Use the mute button during commercials. Make sure you don't go to sleep immediately after switching off the set, or even worse, fall asleep with the set still on. I mean, it's interesting to note that, this book was written in 2007, and that time it was just the television. And now we have so many of TV's friends with these gadgets, iPads, mobile screens, laptops, computers. I mean, so many bhai bands of TV have come that, it's actually a big thing and a big concern right now. So as he said, it has to be, see, because at the end of the day, your eyes is one input for your mind, along with the other inputs you have. So whatever you are eating, tasting, hearing, smelling, touching, or seeing, these five senses are the ones responsible for all the impressions that are being made on your mind. And eyes are very important in that. So all five are important, are equally important, and eyes are also there. So whatever is it that we are feeding these eyes, that is actually being registered inside our mind, and slowly it forms a memory or a belief where we are unconscious about the same. So it is very important what you actually feed yourself, or for that matter, what you actually feed your five senses. Because जो भी आप अपने five senses को feed करोगे, that is how your life is going to, your belief is going to be made, your conditioning is going to be done, your program is going to be done automatically. आपको पता भी नहीं लगेगा, and you'll be in that space. यार ऐसे कैसे? Because that's what is being fed through the channel of your eyes. So it's very important to be very, very cautious of what is it that you want to see or what is it that you want to hear. Because जब आप टीवी देख रहे हो, the two senses which are strongly working are your ears and your eyes, and they create that impression in your subconscious minds in terms of memory pockets of whatever is it that you're seeing. So if it's violence that is being fed through the eyes and heard through the ears, then yes, violence is being programmed. There is no doubt about it in my mind. So it's very important and very, that's a very cautious choice you need to make as to what is it that you want to give your attention to, not just random anything. And the worst is the news. I mean, watching the news and reading the newspaper is one thing, as a personal thing you should avoid. I don't. बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट न्यूज होगी ना, को बता देगा कि भैया लड़ाई हो गई, ठीक है लड़ाई हो गई. I don't watch news. Why should I? But that's a personal notion. If there is a choice available to feed what is it that you are seeing, and if there's a choice available to feed what is it that you can hear, please make good use of this choice, because it does create an impact in your overall personality. Because whatever you're feeding the mind is how you're going to be reacting. So जो 5 senses हैं, उनके inputs are very, very crucial. So whatever is it that you are eating, whatever is it that you are hearing, whatever is it that you're seeing, whatever is it that you're smelling, and whatever is it that you're touching, all 5 of your senses are the ones which are feeding everything towards the mind. So you need to be very, very careful with all 5 and what are you feeding them to all your 5 senses. So to be cautious about your screen times. More than that, be very, very cautious of your content of your screen time. And that is similar with your partners, that is similar with your kids as well. Rather than the time, it is the content that actually matters most. Because वो एक deep down programming चल रही है जिसका हमें अंदाजा नहीं. Recognizing inner space. Space between thoughts is probably already arising sporadically in your life, and you may not even know it. A consciousness mesmerized by experiences and conditioned to identify exclusively with form, that is to say, object consciousness, finds it at first almost impossible to become aware of the space. This ultimately means that you cannot become aware of yourself because you are always aware of something else. You are continuously distracted by form, even when you seem to be aware of yourself. You have made yourself into an object, a thought form. And so what you are aware of is a thought, not yourself. When you hear of inner space, you may start seeking it. And because you are seeking it as if you were looking for an object or for an experience, you cannot find it. This is the dilemma of all those who are seeking spiritual realization or enlightenment. Hence, Jesus said, the kingdom of God is not coming with signs to be observed, nor will they say, now here it is, or there, for behold, the kingdom of God is in midst of you. If you are not spending all of your waking life in discontent, worry, anxiety, depression, despair, or consumed by other negative states, if you are able to enjoy simple things like listening to the sound of the rain or the wind, if you can see the beauty of clouds moving across the sky, or be alone at times without feeling lonely, or needing the mental stimulus of entertainment, if you find yourself treating a complete stranger with heartfelt kindness without wanting anything from him or her, it means that a space has opened. No matter how briefly, in the otherwise incessant stream of thinking that is the human mind, when this happens, there is a sense of well being, of alive peace, even though it may be subtle. The intensity will vary for perhaps barely being noticeable background sense of contentment to what the ancient sages of India called Ananda, the bliss of being, because you have been conditioned to pay attention only to form. You are probably not aware of it except indirectly. For example, if there is a common element in the ability to see beauty, to appreciate simple things, to enjoy your own company, or to relate to other people with loving kindness, this common element is a sense of contentment, peace, and aliveness that is the invisible background without which these experiences would not be possible. Whenever there is beauty, kindness, the recognition of the goodness of simple things in your life, look for the background so that you experience within yourself. But don't look for it as if you were looking for something. You cannot pin it down and say, now I have it, or grasp it mentally and define it in some way. It is like the cloudless sky, it has no form, it is space, it is stillness, the sweetness of being, and infinitely more than these words, which are only pointers. When you are able to sense it directly within yourself, it deepens. So when you appreciate something simple, a sound, sight, or a touch, when you see beauty, when you feel loving kindness towards another, sense the inner spaciousness that is the source and background to that experience. Many poets and sages throughout the ages have observed that true happiness, I call it the joy of being, is found in simple, seemingly unremarkable things. Most people, in their restless search for something significant to happen to them, continuously miss the insignificant, which may not be the insignificant at all. The philosopher Nietzsche, in a rare moment of deep stillness, wrote, "For happiness, how little suffices for happiness. The least tiny, precisely the gentlest thing, the lightless thing, a lizard's rustling, a breath, a whisk, an eye glance. Little maketh up the best happiness, be still." Why is this the least thing that makes up the best happiness? Because true happiness is not caused by the thing or event, although this is how it first appears. The thing or event is so subtle, so unobtrusive, that it takes up only a small part of your consciousness, and the rest is inner space. Consciousness itself, unobstructed by form. Inner space, consciousness, and who you are in your essence are one and the same. In other words, the form of little things leaves room for inner space, and it is from inner space, the unconditioned consciousness itself, that true happiness, the joy of being, emanates. To be aware of little quiet things, however, you need to be quiet inside. A high degree of alertness is required. Look, listen, be present. There is another way of finding inner space. Become conscious of being conscious. say or think, I am, and add nothing to it. Be aware of the stillness that follows the I am. Sense your presence, the naked, uneviled, unclothed beingness. It is untouched by young or old, rich or poor, good or bad, or any other attributes. It is that spacious womb of all creation, all form.